God moved in my life in 1989 through the ministry of FCA, and God is still moving in my life today in 2018 and in my family's lives. Like Mr. Nelson said, my wife is Laura Beth. She grew up in Greenville. I grew up in Kinston. We have 3 boys, Jay, Luke, and Bruce, 13, 10, and 6. So there's never a dull moment in my house. That's why my hair is turning gray, and they're bouncing off the walls and wrestling, and there's always a ball, something going on in the house. But I want to tell you, at the beginning of every practice with Coach Smith, we'd be warming up, and he would blow the whistle, and everybody would sprint into the center court, and we would be around the jump ball circle, and he would call on you, one of the guys, and said, what's the offensive emphasis of the day? So when we walked into the locker room each day before practice, we had a practice plan. Everything was detailed to the very minute. And so when we walked in, we saw, okay, offensive emphasis might be move without the ball. Defensive emphasis might be talk on defense. And then it could be a quote of the day. It could have been a Bible verse. It could have been a motivational quote. So I grew to love quotes. And recently I read a quote a couple years ago that you'll hear me say a lot tonight. Nothing happens until something moves. Nothing happens until something moves. So I'm going to give you my testimony. I'm going to weave some stories in about Coach Smith and lessons that I learned from being a walk-on at Carolina. And then just hopefully you walk away encouraged and you can apply something from the talk. My dad was a brick salesman, still is a brick salesman. He has traveled all over Eastern North Carolina. I was 6 years old. Basketball camp at East Carolina University down the road was for 7-year-olds, a week-long camp, and it was in June. My birthday was in July. My dad went to the basketball coach at the time and said, look, I've got a son. He's about to be 7. I really want him to come to this basketball camp. Well, that basketball coach let me go as a 6-year-old. I was the youngest kid at the camp. And one of my good friends who I would end up playing on the varsity with at Carolina, Charlie McNary, we were roommates, and we were ordering pizza at camp about every night. So we'd go to the payphone. Some of you don't know what a payphone is, but you had to put a quarter in and make a phone call. But that's where the love of basketball started for me. And God poured out a lot of grace on me by giving me 2 parents that loved me and believed in me and encouraged me. And then he put some great coaches at the recreation level all the way up. And there's a quote Billy Graham said, a coach can influence more people in 1 year than the average person can do in a lifetime. And I'm a testimony of coaches that poured into my life and helped me grow. So nothing happens until something moves. During my 8th grade year, I was about to go into high school. There were a number of couples who had gotten married, who had grown up in Kinston, and some folks that were single, that they basically went to college and then they came back and they said, we want to come back to Kinston, we want to work, we want to put our roots in this community, and we want to start FCA. So FCA got started. Jimbo and Joan Perry, Graham Spear, Tom and Gayla Vermillion, Pat and Wendy Sawyer. They all moved to Kinston. They moved into the worlds of high school students like me and Charlie and my other friends. And they started the ministry of FCA. So we had Bible studies in their houses, backyard basketball games, huddles at the school, FCA camps, and I got to see Jesus move in FCA, faith plus sports. These men and women invested in us, and they influenced us. And it played a huge role in my life in high school. As Jet mentioned, it's tough being a high school student. I think it's even probably tougher today with all the social media demands and the technology, and it's hard to ever get away from it. And but I had these leaders that loved me, that poured their lives into me, and that pointed me to Jesus. And it was awesome. I can remember hearing Johnny Evans come speak at a classroom at Kinston High School. I had speakers. I'd sit on the gym floor, and you know how you hear somebody and you feel something and you sense God moving, and I sensed that many times through FCA. Nothing happens until something moves. I was a 5'3", 95-pound freshman in high school with my shoes and my clothes. 5'3", 95 pounds, small. And I love playing basketball. I graduated high school grew a little bit, 5'9", maybe 140 pounds. I played varsity 3 years. Played on the same high school team as Jerry Stackhouse. We had a number of guys that played at the D1 level. Charlie McNary would walk on at Carolina as well. And so I graduated high school with 0 offers to play college basketball. And I went to Carolina because I knew they had a JV program. Coach Smith was a big believer in having a junior varsity team that would serve as kind of like a feeder program, and it would also give guys like me who didn't get recruited a chance to play a couple years after high school. So I went there and tried out after my freshman year, during my freshman year, there were 100 guys that tried out, and they cut it down to like 18. So we had 4 point guards, so I didn't get to play a lot, but I was playing some of the best basketball I'd ever played. Dave Hanners was the coach. He was on Coach Smith's staff. We ran the same offense and defense that the varsity did. We would play before varsity games about 4 or 5 hours. So in the Smith Center, if you've ever been there, it holds 20-some thousand folks. We might have 40 to 50 people, and most of them were the parents and siblings of the players. So we definitely played for the love of the game. And I tore my anterior cruciate ligament my freshman year about halfway through the season. I blew my knee out, and it was at the Smith Center. And, they carried me off the court. I went back to the locker room. I'm by myself in that locker room, and I was weeping. And it was probably one of the lowest points of my life. I felt so afraid. I knew something wasn't right. I mean, the pain that I was in was just excruciating, which is why they call it this anterior cruciate ligament. But I had a lot of questions, and the doctor ended up meeting with the doctor, and he said, we don't know how bad it is. We don't know if you'll ever be able to play, but we'll go in and we'll do surgery and we'll see what happens. So ended up having major knee surgery, and nothing happens until something moves. That knee injury was a turning point in my life because God used people. He nudged people. He inspired people to come alongside of me, asked me to come to a Bible study. They knew I was down. They knew I was discouraged. And I got invited to go to a Bible study with some athletes on campus. And guys like Mike Exenkamper, who works with athletes, a guy named Morgan Bates, who discipled me, Coach John Lotz, who led our FCA at Carolina. And ended up having major knee surgery, spent 3 to 4 hours a day in the training room, and I came back and played my sophomore year. And man, it was awesome just to be able to run again and play again. And I just, when I was going through that, I had to come to a place, I failed to mention this, I had to come to a place where, basketball had become my God. I had got my identity, my security was all wrapped up in basketball. And that was a roller coaster. And so when I lost it, I had to really come to a place where, through God's word, God spoke through these people. He spoke through his word. And through circumstances, I had to come to a realization that basketball could not be number one. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added unto you. And I had to give him basketball. And that was not easy to do because, I had held on to it for so long. And so I said, Lord, I give you basketball. I ended up going on a missions trip after my sophomore year to South America for 5 weeks, and we played on a basketball team. I saw God do some amazing things. We had team Bible studies. We had a discipler, a guy that would meet with us one-on-one. And, like Scott asked some of the folks here, what can we pray for you? He was asking, what can I pray for you? And my prayer that summer was, God, take away the desire for basketball, or please, God, make it stronger. Take it away or make it stronger. And I was kind of going into it like this might be it. And I came back after that trip, and that desire was burning so strong in my heart to not quit playing. And so ended up right before my junior year, going and spending some time. One of my teammates, Charlie McNary, who was already on the varsity, he and I went and spent some time with John Lotz, who you had been coaching with Dean Smith and who had gone and coached at Florida, and he was back as the Associate Athletic Director at UNC. He was the leader of FCA. His brother, Dr. Danny Lotz, who played on the 57 National Championship team. We went and hung out with them at Dr. Lotz's house and played some pickup. And anyway, Coach Lotz reached out. He moved. He started inviting me to go with him to elementary schools, middle schools. We would go and speak to students, share our stories, and do shooting clinics. and he would shoot 30 or 40 free throws in a row, and he would have me demonstrate jump shots and three-point shots and other ball handling drills, and it was awesome. So here's a guy that's just pouring his life into me. I'm catching things. Sometimes things are caught rather than taught. I mean, I was learning from what he was teaching, but I was also catching things by being around him. And tried out for the varsity my junior year, 95, 96. There were 9 of us that tried out. They cut it down to 3 guys. About 3 days before the team was to go to Hawaii. I've got my timer here. I want to make sure I don't run over. Right before Hawaii, they're going to the Maui Tip-Off Classic. If some of you watched that around Thanksgiving time, he came to all 3 of us and he said, "Look, I cannot keep all 3 of you, but I don't want to cut you. So we're going to propose what's called a taxi squad system." And I said, "Okay." I said, "That's great," And I was like, "I'm not cut, but I'm not really on the team, but hey, I'm excited. I'm just thankful for the opportunity." So anyway, I went home and spent some time praying and talking with a teammate and one of the guys that was mentoring me. And we prayed and kind of came to the realization there's 2 options. You can wait for Coach Smith to call you when somebody gets hurt, and you'll get to go to practice. And if you get to practice, you get to play suit up during the home game. And the other option is you can call Coach Smith and just go talk with him. So I called the basketball office and I asked for his secretary, Ms. Woods, and I said, "Ms. Woods, my name's Webb Tyndall. You don't know who I am, but I am trying out for the team, and I would love to speak with Coach Smith before he goes to Hawaii if I can meet with him." And she patched me through. I had a quick conversation. I ended up going to meet with Coach Smith the very next day. And in that meeting, just had a great conversation. He knew I had gone on a mission trip. We talked about faith. We talked about a lot of things. And I just said, "I'm thankful that you had this JV team. I'm thankful that I had an opportunity to play. I want to be a full-fledged member of this team. I don't care if I ever suit up." And he was very gracious, very kind. And he said, "We'll get back in touch with you." Well, they went to Hawaii. And then when they got back from Hawaii, they gave me a call. And my JV coach, Dave Hanner, said, "Can you come to practice tomorrow?" So I showed up at practice. I started going to practice every day. They never told me I'm on the team. I dressed in a separate locker room. I didn't have a name on my jersey. Right before Christmas, they sent me and the other guy. So it was 3. Now there was just 2 of us. They sent us home for Christmas because they were going on a senior game for one of our seniors in Pennsylvania. So I went home. I'm going to have a good time at Christmas. The day after Christmas, they call me back, and they say, "You don't have to come back till January 2nd. So enjoy your family. We're going to play in Asheville. We're going to take a jet from Asheville to Texas, and we'll come back, and you can show up to practice on January 2nd. It's like, great. 4 hours later, coach calls back, says, "We had some stuff came up at practice. One of our guys got injured. He's a starting point guard. Can you come be a practice player? You ride with us to Asheville, then you'll drive the bus back from Asheville to Chapel Hill while we fly to Texas." Well, I said, "Sure, I'm going to pack my bags." I was a Boy Scout. The Boy Scout motto is be prepared. So I packed my bags and I was ready to go. And right before the Asheville game, Coach Smith said, would you be able to go with us to Texas? And I said, "Twist my arm," right? So I went to Texas. From that point on in the season, I traveled. I dressed in a separate locker room. I kept showing up every single day. At some point during the year, they moved me into the locker room, and they put my name on my jersey. I'm living the dream, right? First year, junior year, we ended up losing to Texas Tech in the second round of the NCAA tournament. A guy broke the backboard during the game. I had to put a new goal up. But I had 1 point my junior year against NC State. And I got so excited, I hit my first free throw. And I was so pumped. And then I hit the next one brick off the back of the rim. So anyway, after the season, Coach Smith would sit down with every player, whether you were the last player on the bench or whether you were a star like Vince Carter, number 15, or Antoine Jameson. And he went through with me. He said, "I want you to work on getting faster and stronger." And he gave me a long list of stuff. And he said, "I want you to be able to shoot 3 feet behind the three-point line so you can get your shot off." And And he said, last thing he told me, he said, look, I can't promise you a spot on the team next year. And I said, Coach, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to have been able to play JV and to walk on. I'm just going to work hard and we'll see what happens. And so about a week later, I went to the basketball office, went in to get to my mailbox, because even guys like me, the last guy on the bench, will get fan mail requests to go speak at a youth group or a middle school or a high school. And so I took those seriously. And so I go and I pull out a letter, and it's from Coach Smith. And I start reading everything that we had talked about in the meeting. He had summarized it paragraph by paragraph. And then I'll never forget what the last paragraph said. It said, lastly, we're prepared to offer you a scholarship for your senior year. So here I am, 5'3", 95-pound freshman in high school. No offers to play college basketball when I graduated high school. Go try out for the JV team, blow my knee out. Don't know if I ever get to play again. Play, walk on. Now I'm on scholarship. And what I learned from that is that God's favor, that's Him doing in my life what I could not do on my own. He gave me favor and opened some doors that were absolutely amazing. Nothing happens until something moves. Before the 1996-97 season, Coach Smith and the other coaches gave each player a picture of the RCA Dome. That's where the 1997 Final Four was being played that year. And every day we opened our lockers, and I sat beside Vince Carter. Every day we opened our lockers, that picture of the RCA Dome was there. And he taught me a lesson about vision. Scott showed us a vision. He showed us a dream, what it could look like, 2 staff people in each of those regions. And so every single day we saw that. We saw that picture of the RCA Dome, and we had high expectations that year. Coach Smith also gave me have you ever heard of the goose story? Why geese fly in V formation? They can travel much further on the thrust of one another. It's all about teamwork, cooperation, communication. But I think he gave me that article because he highlighted this one part in the article. And geese honk from behind to encourage the geese that are up front facing the most resistance. He wanted me to bring enthusiasm, energy, and encouragement to practice every single day, and to cheer for those guys that were out there, playing. So he gave me that, and I took that very seriously. So 1996-97 season would be his last year. Nobody knew that because he would retire the following fall. But we had high expectations. Vince Carter, Jameson, Shammond Williams, one of the top shooting guards, one of the top point guards in the country was there, Ed Cota. Started the ACC regular season 0-3. We lost in Charlottesville at UVA, where his low point. They didn't think we would make the NCAA tournament, and we ended up having a players-only meeting, and that was a turning point for our team. A lot of guys got real in that locker room. It was a long bus ride back home. We knew that practice the next day would be long and grueling, and each day we came into practice, we had to watch film, and so we were figuring we're going to watch a ton of film. Well, we came into the locker room, and Coach Smith, we're all sitting there, and he comes and he starts singling out each player. And he goes around the room and he speaks affirmations and blessings over every single player, from the Vince Carter to the last guy on the bench. And he started challenging guys, and he started challenging our team. And we ended up winning that next game, coming from behind, 9 points in 2 minutes and 9 seconds to beat NC State 59-56. It was just remarkable. We ended up losing a couple more games to finish the first half of the regular season 3-5, and then won 16 straight games that year, won the ACC tournament, and got to the Final Four where we lost to Arizona. That RCA Dome, we made it there. Didn't get to finish what we wanted, but got to be in the Final Four. I learned that momentum is a powerful thing. Enthusiasm is a powerful thing. It's contagious. Energy is contagious. And the power of teamwork and the power of encouragement. I learned that from watching Coach Smith. Nothing happens until something moves. So my parents, my FCA leaders, Coach Smith, and others challenged me to give back and to make a difference. You know, I've had so many opportunities through this ministry of FCA to serve as a chaplain for a football team, a high school team, be on the sidelines, lead Bible studies, lead chapels, take kids to camp. I've seen God move in cabins, with camps, with kids whose lives were just totally transformed. One of the largest drug dealers in our town at the time lost one of his teammates to a head injury. He was at a low point his whole senior year, comes to me at the end of his senior year and says, I got to give my life to God. I got to get right. He ended up radically getting transformed, following Jesus, went to Liberty for a couple of years. He's now married and has a kid, and his life, the trajectory of his life was changed. And that's happening all over the country. It's happening in northeastern North Carolina. And, today I have an opportunity to serve as a leader of a middle school huddle. I get donuts there. I help line up speakers. Like Coach Matera said about the play of the day, if you don't get the play of the day and you're a coach, I would highly encourage you to get that. It's so encouraging. I print them out and give them to my kids to read. David Wall, who's the FCA director in my hometown, is a mentor to me. So in 1989, FCA started, and today I'm still being impacted by this ministry. Nothing happens until something moves. If you look at Jesus' ministry, he moved. He was moved with compassion, and he acted on that compassion. He walked, he talked, he approached guys, tax collectors, fishermen, and he said, come follow me. He went to them, he pursued them, and they followed him, and their lives were never the same. And then, he was walking down the road. We see him look up in a tree and see Zacchaeus and says, come down. And Zacchaeus' life was, forever changed. And, he prayed for folks. He fed 5,000. These coaches and these FCA leaders, they're going where kids are, that war zone that Coach said and Johnny mentioned. They're going to where this stuff is happening, and they're loving kids, and they're pouring into kids, and lives are being changed. Scott and his wife Lori have a vision for this region in the Albemarle region, what you saw, that slide. And because of that vision, Scott is focused. Because of that vision, Scott has endurance. Because of that vision, Scott has peace. And because of that vision, Scott has passion. If you didn't sense his passion, go spend some time with him after this. You'll see it. Every time I talk to him, I'm encouraged by his passion and his love for FCA and for reaching these athletes, coaches, and all whom they influence. So, you've been asked tonight, will you move? Nothing happens until something moves. Thank you so much for your support, for giving your time, your talent, and your treasure. I don't know what moving means for you. Some of you, it may mean going and helping a huddle, serving as a volunteer leader. Some of it may be becoming a monthly contributor, or going to your pastor at your church and saying, look, we got local missions budget. Can we give to FCA? But nothing has had such a positive impact on a person as giving to others. And people who have a giving spirit are some of the most positive people we know. Why? Because giving is the highest level of living. And they focus their time and their energy on what they can give to others. And the more a person gives, the better his or her attitude. Coach Smith taught me a lot about generosity. He taught me so much about generosity. When I played for him, he was generous with me, with encouragement. He would give me tapes of sermons to listen to on my ride back home to Kinston for holidays. And when he passed away, I don't know if some of you may have heard, he gave, every player got a letter in the mail with a check for $200 to go take their family out to a nice meal. And after he was living, that generosity, it was evident. And nothing happens until something moves. And so if God is nudging you in any way tonight, he's going to give you grace to move. And I promise you that your moving will impact students, athletes, and coaches. I personally have seen it happen in my own life. And the deal is this: teamwork makes the dream work. Thank you.